Welcome to Prinergy, a digital media center. We are located in Hunt Valley, Maryland. Today is October 16, 2017. We will interview Mr. Robert Banker. Mr. Banker entered the service on November 8, 1951 in New York, New York. From December 1951 through March 1952, Mr. Banker's basic training was at Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, and Fort Sill, Oklahoma. He was stationed in Korea from March 1952 through June 1953. He was assigned to an artillery battalion and served in the Kumwa Valley of Korea. He mustered out August 8, 1953. This interview is in two parts. Mr. Banker will be interviewed by Mr. Richard Vandenberg. Mr. Vandenberg is also an Army veteran. Mr. Vandenberg was in the military in mid-1957 through 1960. He had duty stations in Fort Mammoth, New Jersey, and in Germany. Part 2 of the interview is a question-answer period. In the audience, there were several individuals, and they have questions. Mr. Banker, we thank you for your service. And Dick, when did you serve?
I served in 1957 through 1960.
And where did you serve, Dick?
I served in basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, and my schooling was Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, in the photo school. And then I worked as a photo technologist over at Edgewood Arsenal. And from there I was transferred to Kaiserslautern, Germany. And then that's where I was I mustered out, let's say, at that time in 1960.
Okay. So you both are military veterans, and you both have things that probably have some common experience, and things that happened to you, but years apart. So, Dick, what would you like to ask Bob?
Well, Bob, first of all, I assume that you fulfilled your obligation to the military in a sense that you are proud of and that you are happy that you did it. Is that a fair assumption?
There's no question that serving the country is one of the proudest moments and times of my life that I look back. Having survived it all, yes. If I were otherwise, it would be slightly different, but I'm very proud of that I gave my time to the country, and I think they're proud of me too.
On behalf of the country, thank you for your service, sir. Let's start with your basic training. And when did you go into the military, and where did you have your basic training?
Basic training and entry into the military, the November 8th, 1951, my father dropped me off at the appropriate place in the next town with others, hopped a bus, went to downtown Manhattan, joined others, and then went to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey to be outfitted, no more civilian clothes, regular Army ragtag uniform, so to speak. And then the first thing we did that night, God bless the Army, I learned how to make a bed. Hospital corners, to which I adhere to this day. And then a few days later, once we were all mustered through the process, we took a train from there to Fort Smith, Arkansas, transferred from Fort Smith, Arkansas from train to a bus to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which is stationed outside of Lawton, Oklahoma. And I was there from about December through the middle of March of the following year, when the 4 months were concluded on the full basic training.
So your basic training then was during the fall and early winter?
The basic training, yes, and started in the fall and went over the winter, and they had us out there on the field, and some days it got a bit cool, 10 below zero, but out in Oklahoma it warmed up when the sun came up.
Okay. Basic training, as I'm not sure how it is today, but back then, and I think it was pretty much the same for you, we look back on it as at the time we were probably very mad at certain things, but in the days that passed and now, we tend to remember just the better days, the happier days and the fun days and the things that you accomplished. What were the biggest fulfillment days and projects that you were into in basic training?
Well, the time involved in basic training was learning, and the most important thing was to respond to orders. If they said stand up at attention, you had no qualm about that, you did it. If they said squat and pick something up off the grass, you did that. Whatever it was they wanted you to do, teaching you actually to respond to commands automatically without thinking, because that's the role of a soldier and any other one going through any other kind of basic training. Things that I remember, well, we were given bayonets and told to charge up the hill, bayonets extended, and I think to myself, what the hell am I doing? And they had a straw dummy, and of course we had to puncture that straw dummy as though it were a real individual. Thank heavens I never had to use a bayonet, but they made sure that I knew how to utilize it and how to put it on the M1.
So you used the M1 rifle?
In basic training, yes.
Yeah. Is that the rifle you were issued throughout your service?
No, when we got to Korea, the service gave us in artillery a carbine,
Okay.
a 30-30 or something like that, but not an M1. That was referred to the infantry on the line. I was artillery, and actually I only had to use it a few times in target practice, and that was all.
Were you familiar with firearms before you went into the military?
Nope, never touched a firearm before I went into the military, and haven't touched a firearm since I've come out of the military. I've never had it in my view. That was something I needed to do. I was happy to have one during military because of the obvious necessity that might come up, and you don't know when. So when you go anywhere to have food in the mess tent or somewhere else, you took your weapon with you.
Yep. It became your
The weapon stayed with you when you slept, and it was loaded.
Yep. You did keep a loaded weapon?
Yes.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yes.
This was after basic training?
This is in Korea.
Yeah, okay.
The
Makes
idea of a loaded weapon was, in the event something would occur, it would be awkward to look for your bullets. They should be right there with you in the rifle and the carbine, so all you do is pick it up and do what you have to do.
What was the specialty then that you pretty much worked in while you were in the
My
military?
specialty in Korea, you'll never believe this. Think of the program about the Korean War, MASH, and think of radar. I was not the company clerk, but he was a switchboard operator, as was I. A switchboard operator, real old-fashioned switchboard, with the plugs you put in and here and there. If the captain wanted to call the general, went through me. If the general wanted to call the captain, went through me. But don't listen in. So that was the extent of what had to be done, because that was all they had at that particular time in the way of communication.
Okay.
And there were about 3 of us in that particular section to do it on a 24-hour basis, and went through in that way.
Your experiences then in the military, as far as the what's the word, artillery part of it, how did you interact with that? What did you do as far as that's concerned?
With the artillery?
Yes.
Actually, very little. I was only assigned to a artillery howitzer. It's a 105 howitzer. The range is only about 7 miles. So our units were always fairly close to the line up ahead. The big guns, the 240s and 155, they'd be a few miles back because they had a range of 20 miles or even so. But we only had a range of about 7, so we needed to be fairly close. And after a couple of weeks on a gun, I was then transferred into what they call the signal section, operating the switchboard. But somebody's got to do the heavy duty. I accepted it that way.
Had you yourself fired that weapon, or been
Well, I
part
pulled
of
a lanyard or two, but that was about all.
Okay.
It was from after the 2 weeks, I was solely on the switchboard, and I stayed there until it was time to come home.
the calculations that they do today is all done by computer, obviously. But back then, do you remember how they calculated the angle and that sort of thing in firing that weapon? I imagine it was quite.
Well, they had the
intense.
forward observer up there on the line with the troops who would call back and say to fire on a certain subject, and the people at the guns had a map as to where the particular hill was, and they had the coordinates, and they would then fire a test round to see where it would land. And the forward observer would call back and say, up 20, left, whatever, something like that to zero in. And when they fired a few more rounds and zeroed in, then it was a full command to fire the guns, which continued until the operation was completed.
And earlier you mentioned that the association with MASH, and referring back to that as far as the reference goes, did you have any kind, what was the, I guess the question I'm asking is, was there a MASH unit near where you were?
MASH units? The only mash I knew was mashed potatoes. It wasn't until I got home and saw the program, I thought, my God, what's that? I had no idea.
Wow.
I never had to use one. The line troops did all the time, of course, but we had incoming now and then, once in a while, and had some wounded and some killed in action right there. But beside that, I had no knowledge of a MASH unit, so to speak.
Okay, where in Korea were you stationed exactly?
Well, if you want to think about it, the 38th parallel was the line between north and south, and then it began that the line from the west above Seoul extended upwards in a northeasterly direction. I was about halfway up, and we stayed in that sort of area for most of the time. We didn't move from one area to another, but generally within the confines of central Korea.
What the office that you were working in, the company commander and so on, what were their ranks, and do you still have in touch with those people, or?
No, the touching with people, and it was so individualized at that time as a draftee. I was simply one guy from Baldwin, New York, and hopped on a bus with a bunch of others who knew nobody, went through basic training, and we began to know somebody at the end of basic training, but then we were all dispatched to different units, so I never saw any of my ones that did basic training with me. And as it was in Korea, when we stayed there, I got off a truck and found out who I was with, and then stayed with them for the 13 months. But I came in a singular fashion and left in a singular fashion by getting on the truck to go home. And the same on the boat. There are 2,500 troops on the boat going home, and I didn't know one except, as fate would have it, I happened to meet a guy on board, and he was a Marine. There were about 2,500 on board the ship, but only about 200 Army and the rest were Marines, so the Army guys were not told that they needed to do KP and stuff like that. We had a free reign. But I thought I saw a fellow, I thought, geez, you look familiar. He says, yeah, you look familiar too. Who are you? Who am I? And we went to the high school together.
There you go.
And then we never saw each other again. He went his way on the boat and I went my way. But it was something I will always remember. But coming home was, again, singular. When we came through under the Golden Gate, an epical moment. You look up from the deck and you say, geez, I hope we clear the bridge. You look, from that angle, whoa, wait a minute. But they knew better. They knew, of course, it would clear. And it did clear. And then we docked in the San Francisco harbor somewhere, disembarked and went into a place to stay for a few days while we were processed, and then hop on a DC-3, which is called a C-46 in military terms, and it's my transport home.
And you flew into BWI, or?
No, actually Camp Kilmer area, New Jersey. BWI, I'm not sure whether that was in existence. I wouldn't have any knowledge of it at that time. But I went back to Camp Kilmer and called my father and let him know I'm now here and home and come pick me up, which he did at a later point during the day. And
What day was that, do you remember?
the actual day, I don't know. I left Korea in the middle of June, got home by boat in San Francisco about 3 weeks later. About another week after that, I came to Camp Kilmer, so I would say 4 to 5 weeks from the middle of June, maybe the latter part of July,
Okay,
somewhere around that area.
okay. When you left the military, did you have, what awards did you receive?
When I left the military, it was simply a matter of a good conduct medal, a participation medal, I forget the name of it, but they give it to everybody who goes through. And aside from that, it was just a recognition of my service and time in Korea.
I see the medals that you're wearing. I see the Good Conduct Medal. What are the other ones? Do you remember?
Well, one of them is a ribbon, the one here on the left side is service in Korea. Whenever you see that on a soldier, you know that's where he served. And I really forget what the other two are. When I joined the Korean War Veterans Association, I had this shirt given to me, and they picked out this and put it on here, and I said, fine, I'll go with that.
What is the layered that you're wearing? What is it?
Well, for the honor guard uniform, they wanted this blue layered as a symbol of continuity within the honor guard. There are different colors for different units. Artillery has red,
Okay.
infantry has blue, and they decided that blue would be a better format to use, even though I was not infantry. But for the honor guard, blue would be fine as the continuity of color.
I see on your left shoulder the lightning patch. I would assume that would reference the job that you did in Korea as a communication specialist.
The patch itself, no, not necessarily. The patch itself is a reference to the infantry division that I was associated with. It was the 25th Infantry Division, and that's the patch of the division. I myself was assigned to the 8th Field Artillery Battalion that was associated with the 25th, but it was all under the guidance of the 25th Division, so that's why I have the patch there. It's called the Tropic Lightning Division. And then
American flag.
on this side,
Yep.
I carried this for 14 months. It means quite a lot to me.
Yes, sir. Are there any other questions that you feel need to be asked at this time, or?
Well, in reference to current time or past time?
Well, either one.
Well, past time, proud to have served. Never got a scratch, not complaining, happy about that. The heroes are the guy we left on the battlefield. There was some of those, 36,000 plus,
Yeah.
103,000 wounded, and about 8,000 missing in action, 5,000 POWs. It was a little localized war, but ours was a war of lesser moment than those of World War II. That was all encompassing, 15 million people in uniform all across the world and so on, so our little thing in Korea was a small semblance of what theirs was, but each time it was a battle. It doesn't matter where you were or what, a battle, a war is a war. And we all participated. And if you think about what Korea does, their country was destroyed. I, of course, had my share of helping, along with everybody else, along with the enemy. But what they have done is what is important to the resolution of the war. Was it useful? Was it useless? And it was useful and absolutely not useless, because they have become, over the decades, a well-maintained country, democracy. Their economy is the 11th in the world. And I happen to, in 1908, our honor guard went to Washington to help celebrate the visitation of the Korean president. And in a moment he gave an address to us, and everybody could take a picture with him of their particular unit. And when I did, I was the last one in line, and I looked at where he was standing in the middle, in front of a stage. And I thought, well, to the left, there are too many people. To the right, there are too many people. So I hopped on the stage and stood right behind the president.
Very good.
And but then getting down, everybody comes over to shake his hand, and so it seemed like the longest time. And then when I jumped down, within a foot of my face was the president, and introduced myself and suggested to him why I thought the Republic of Korea has become what they have become. Pretty audacious. Here I am, 60-second FaceTime as the president of a country. Wow. I said to him, it's my belief that it's a strong family unit there. Second is a marvelous work ethic. And the third is education, education, education. And I got a smile at him, so I think I hit it. Without education, you go nowhere. They've been a bunch of paddy farmers on rice. But instead, they're a highly civilized, skilled country, technical, education, education, education. And I recently was invited to a Korean festival in Howard County on September 16th, I believe. And they asked me to speak. One of the things I said to them was this: one of the greatest gifts you, meaning the Korean people, have given to us, meaning soldiers, was the restoration of your country. What you have achieved with special, special emphasis on education. They all liked me. I sat on the stage next to the First Lady, and I was honored to have her, and I think she was honored to have me. When I got on the stage, I took my cap, I had a baseball type cap, and waved to the crowd, and wow, so happy to be there. And I read my little piece, about 2 minutes long, and 2 minutes was over in just a moment, and I was just thrilled to do it. But they are just a marvelous, marvelous people. They can't thank us enough for helping them. And it doesn't matter whether it's a 3-year-old or Papa San, Grandpapa San. They always thank us profusely from the heart. And in response, I symbolize it saying, we built the foundation for you, but you built the mansion. And that is how it should be looked at.
Bob, thank you very much for a delightful conversation.
Well, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here.
This is part 2, and we will have a question and answer session. Now, let's begin.
Bob, why were you in the Honor Guard?
The Honor Guard of the Korean War veterans existed from the time the chapter was established around 1990. I joined in the year 2000 in June. And about a year later, they said, well, we have enough on the Honor Guard. Could I be part of another subsistent organization with the Honor Guard? The next step up would be the Honor Guard. And then shortly thereafter, they had an opening and wanted to know if I wanted to be a member of the Honor Guard. So I became a member of the Honor Guard, and it was just a thrill, just a real thrill to walk onto the colors, sometimes at church, sometimes at a hall meeting, sometimes at a banquet, and many times at M&T Stadium.
Now, do you carry the flags?
I carried all the flags one at a time. The true flag, the POW MIA flag, the Maryland flag, any flag there was, I was happy to carry it. And it's just an honor.
Just a final question, Bob, if I may. What is your opinion now about the draft? Should it be reinstated, in your opinion, or should it be as it is right now?
Well, I think the answer would be the continuation of as it is right now. There are too many diffuse difference is if there is a draft to even initiate one. Essentially, all 18-year-olds have to register for the draft, but there is no draft. But I would prefer that they maintain the continuity of what they have themselves. They're a very professional soldier. They all care. They walked up to the line and raised their hand to swear allegiance to the Constitution, etc. Whereas a draftee, I got a letter from President Truman saying report. I still have the telegram too.
Okay.
Cool. Well, that's good. You know, one of the things in this series, we do have people who are in the audience. And on occasion, I go out and ask them if they have a question for you. So we have, if we can get a microphone up there. Young lady up in front, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
You've answered all my questions, and this is fantastic what you said. Yes.
Oh, come on closer so we can hear you.
Oh, one other question you might want to ask me. Did I ever meet the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff?
Did you ever meet the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff?
Funny you should ask.
How about that?
I did meet the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We were going to a function at the British Embassy in October of 01, and it was in honor of the Korean veterans. So we were the only ones there as a veteran presence, but the active duty people were there, and I was talking to a captain, you know, yada, 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 and then I said, who's that 4-star over there? And he said, oh, that's General Myers. He's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So I talked to the captain for a little while and then went over and stood next to where the general was surrounded by people. And he would talk to everyone and chat with everyone, and finally they all left and it was only me. And I introduced myself and told him why I was here, wanted to talk to him, because you haven't asked me about the re-enlistment of veterans following 9/11. 9/18, we had a veterans re-enlistment in Bel Air, the Festival of Bel Air that I organized. And that day we had about 200 veterans from all sorts of life. One fellow had his Army uniform on from 1936, still looked good. Another fellow, the Battle of the Bulge and elsewhere and where they served. And this was in recognition, knowing that following 9/11 something's going to happen. So this was the idea that, well, we are with you. And we were sworn in by a captain. We all raised our right arm. But it was symbolic. After the swearing in was over, no one said right face. So, sort of went on with our program and concluded it with God Bless America. And it was just a nice time. So I told General Myers about that and asked him if I could send him a video of it, because I had the video from the 4 TV stations of the news presentation that night. There was between 2 and 2.5 minutes from each station on this, me, and so on. So he said yes. So I made arrangements to have it sent in. And in January I went to the mailbox and there was a letter from General Myers, Chairman and Joint Chiefs of Staff, to me personally. So I took it over to the Aegis and they published it. I'm not embarrassed about that. I really enjoyed it. And then sometime later I had an occasion to go down to see the Army Chief of Staff, General Shuchi, I forget his name, I don't want to embarrass myself. And I mentioned this. I said to the general, what do you think? Would General Myers have his secretary write one out and he would simply sign it? He looked at me and he says, no, that's not General Myers. He would do it himself and sign it, and it's yours. I'm just so pleased to hear that.
I have a question about the weather in Korea. On the TV show MASH, they show quite often that in the winter they were freezing cold, and during the summer it was blistering hot. Is that accurate?
That's true. I had temperatures going down in the wintertime between 5 and 10 below. in the summertime, there was a lot of high heat, high humidity, and it rained a lot. So yes, it is accurate.
My question would be, I notice on your name tag, besides your name, you have, or at least not this one, but you are a treasurer of an organization.
Yes.
Is that a Korean War Association?
Yes, it's the Korean War Veterans Association. This is chapter number 33, and I am still the treasurer. Actually, I filled all offices. I started off as second vice president, to first vice president, to president, to treasurer, to editor of the monthly bulletin that we had, and I think I served in practically every function we had within the officer part of the chapter. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but now we are ancient, ill, some have not lived as long as they should. Our ranks are diminishing. Activity of people is few and fewer, so we are in the process of disbanding in the year 2017.
Sorry to hear that.
Pardon?
Sorry to hear that.
Well, so am I, but if you live long enough, you acquire everything. So I'm happy with my good health, and others in a wheelchair, or they have pacemakers and other things, and so I feel very blessed with what I have.
Would you consider finding another veterans organization?
Yes, I'm going to join the American Legion.
And you haven't joined the American Legion before?
No, no. I always thought the American Legion and the VFW, Veterans of Foreign War, these were organizations that were well beyond me. I was just a little speck on the beach. That was not me. And millions of people in the organizations, and I was just, again, a little speck. But then when I learned about the Korean War Veterans Association, it came to me that, damn, that's my war. So I quickly joined it, and matter of fact, a fellow of the organization, Blair Cross, he wrote a letter to the Aegis in Harford County, explaining a certain aspect of getting a federal charter, and the first I knew of a Korean War Veterans Association. So I looked at it, read it again, picked up the phone book and called the guy and said, yes, I'd like to be part of that.
Well, if we have no more questions, Dick Vandenberg, I'd like to thank you for your service and thank you for asking the question.
My pleasure.
And Mr. Bank, I want to thank you for coming here today to talk with us and talk to those people who will see this video someday.
Well,
Thank you very much.
I thank you for the opportunity from the heart. I really appreciate this. Means a lot to me.
Good.
Would you like to talk about your upcoming book?
Well, there's talk about a book, and the book relates to the idea of coming home. Not just soldiers at my time in Korea, but soldiers anywhere in combat. Wherever, Afghanistan, Kuwait, World War II, Vietnam, you name it. Those who are in a combat vogue, not somebody who served stateside, which some people have, but you don't tell the captain where you want to serve. They say, well, you'll go here and you'll go there. But it's strictly for ones who have been subject to a combat environment for some stated period of time. And there comes a point, World War II, you went home and it was over. In Korea, it was based on a rotation system of gathering 40 points. Those in infantry got 4 points every month. Artillery, such as me, got 3 points every month. Those in the well-rationed rear got 2 points a month, and well back there got 1 point a month. So I was authorized 3 points a month, and it took 13, 14 months to acquire the 40 in which I could come home. Infantry took 10 months, that kind of thing. What happens is that you arrive there and you can calculate mentally 40 points and how long it will take you, and the future is always a long way off, but the future has a way of catching up, as we all know. I'm 85, I was 20 years of age then, so there you are. it will arrive. But then as it gets closer, you begin to become a little more wary about things and so on. 2 months away is not so bad, a month away is not so bad, but then it's 3 weeks and, whoa, baby, I want to survive this. I want to make sure I do it. And then one day, as I was, somebody said, go see the sergeant. Go see the sergeant. I thought I knew what was going to come up. And he says, I accumulated all the points necessary. A truck will be here. They didn't have any buses, they used a truck. Around, let's just say 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, get your gear, your bag, and get on, you're going home. And then the following day, you get on the truck, and you go to a camp, maybe 20 miles south, to be reprocessed, given new fatigues and so on. And the night before that I left, I remember we had a command of drawing the colors down, and we're all there in formation, saluting the flag, playing the national anthem, thinking to myself, that's my flag, that's my country, I'm going home. It's something I feel it's just like yesterday. And then the next morning, get up, get my gear, get onto a landing craft, although this was going from the harbor, the land to the boat, scale the rope ladder, get on board, and next day we pulled up anchor and going home. Monumental. Stories like that I would like from any veteran, from any war, from any time, who has experienced the danger of day by day. I never thought about it that way, but my family always did because they didn't know what was happening to me. They had to worry, I never worried. When it was over, it was too late to worry. That kind of thing. So I like stories from all veterans, wherever, however, how they felt just before they, now it's real, you're coming home, you're not just thinking about it as a future item. It's here, you get ready, and you're leaving. It's like you're in a storm, black clouds, lightning, thunder anywhere, and then magically a door opens. You step outside into warmth and sunlight and caring. You're going home.
And how would veterans that are interested in making a submission to you contact you?
Well, I'm trying to contact them, which through the help of my daughter Allison, brought it back into the foreground as to something that I need to be a part of. I have now about 8 or 9 stories, and I have to go seek the stories. They will not come to me, I have to go seek them, which is another reason why I want to join the American Legion. To be a part of that and present this and pursue it in other ways and talking to people, not just sit back and wait for something to happen, because that never happens. Sit back and wait, you'll still be waiting. Seek them out. Then I'd like to get a book. I would not write it. All these people would write it. I'd just look at it for spelling, punctuation. That's it. Just write a little forward, and I think it would sail on its own. Civilians have no idea what it's like in that kind of a configuration. All of a sudden. And one story was such. The guy was on the line. Guy from headquarters came in and asked if Joe Smith was here, and somebody answered, yeah, Joe Smith, okay. This is true. Get your gear, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, truck's gonna leave, get out of here. Okay, going home. And then Tom Jones, I'm using names because I don't really recall exactly what they were. Say Tom Jones sitting there, say, well, heck, the other fellow and I, we came in here together on the same truck. Why is he leaving and I'm not? Half hour later, the same guy from headquarters came in and says, Tom Jones here. Yo, get your gear, 5 minutes, truck is going. True story. He made it. A few minutes to spare. It's just a dynamite feeling. I think if there was a book like that, people would be in awe of what a soldier from whatever service goes through. Even the fellows who fly the planes, because they have a difficult time when they're over target. It's no picnic. but anyone who's experienced it, that's the idea.
Wow, thank you so much.
I'm pleased to be here and honored. I really am.
Thank you so much.
Good job.
I'm glad.
You have the contract in the morning.
It's free. But it does get me. I think about that, and the night before I left, and it's just like it's there. Doesn't go away.
Glad they're healthy memories.
Yes, it is.
Would
Same
you do it
way,
all again?
Pardon?
Would you do it all again?
My country needed me, I'd be there.
Yep.
I wouldn't argue the point. I would be there ahead of time. In fact, when I conceived the idea of having a re-enlistment, I went to the Army recruiting station, Festival of Bel Air, and walked in, and a sergeant sitting at a desk said, "Hello, how are you?" "Fine. What can I do for you?" This was right after 9/11 on a Friday. And I looked at him and said, "I'd like to re-enlist." His jaw dropped off.
How old were you then?
This was in 2001. I'm 85 now, so do the math. 70, 69 or thereabouts. So he went to consult a senior sergeant, and then we chatted, and they were on board. And then went to see their commanding officer and so on, and he was on board. So 8 days later we had a re-enlistment in Festival of Bel Air. And one of the nicest things about it was, just as we were about to start, I told the command sergeant from the Marines, wearing his dress blues, they look good, to call the troops to order. The troops, you know, they're former generals and colonels, mostly sergeants. And maybe some were overweight, maybe they shouldn't have been, but they were. Trying to stand that attention was a bit difficult for some. They were all old people. But just at that point, a bus pulled up and parked 20 feet over there. And we saw it was an Army bus. And then we saw what was coming out, guys in wheelchairs. They had no legs. They were out on an outing that they had that day, and they told the lady in charge of where the outing was going to be that they weren't going to go there. They heard about what was happening at the festival, and that's where they wanted to go. So they pulled up. Couldn't plan any better. So we said, wait a minute, we're going to find out what's going on here. Hold. Went over there, and they got off in their wheelchairs being pushed up, and it was quite a dramatic period of moments right then. And then got them settled in the front rank, and then continued on with the quasi-ceremony of re-enlisting. And that was just beautiful. And at the end it was the opposite. A fellow drove up with his wife and wanted to know about the re-enlistment. Told him, "I'm sorry, it was finished, it was concluded, and they left about 10 minutes ago. I'm sorry that he could not have been part of it." One fellow said, "Wherever the flag is, I'll be there." People should realize the flag is a symbol of this country and what it means. It doesn't mean the personal status, the relationships, the divisions, the divisiveness here, there, and everywhere. It means the country from which we are a part of. It means a lot to anybody. Ask any soldier who's worn the patch on his shoulder, as I did. You did. Means a lot. With particular emphasis on those who are in the battlefield, and I don't exclude women, but the medics, they are there, no arms, no nothing, to seek and help others. And they're not too far back are the MASH units, etc., and the nurses, the doctors, who spend all their time until the last soldier has been looked after. And we thank all those people tremendously. Without them, where would we be? Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you, sir. Again, thank you for your service.
No, thank you for the opportunity.